Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Dr. Michael Lynch and the Bayesian Yacht Disaster? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Michael Richard Lynch was born on June 16, 1965, in London, England. He went by the name Mike and was raised in Essex, England. His father was a firefighter and his mother worked as a nurse. After graduating with a bachelor's degree, Mike continued his education. He earned a PhD in artificial neural networks from Cambridge University. In the late 1980s, when he was still studying for his PhD, he established a company that manufactured audio products. In 1991, he started a company that developed a fingerprint recognition system for computers. In 1996, he established an enterprise software company called Autonomy, which brought him incredible financial success. He sold the company to Hewlett-Packard for $11 billion in October 2011. From this sale alone, which was one of the largest technology deals in British history, Mike made $804 million. He was referred to as Britain's Bill Gates. In 2012, Mike established another company called Invoke Capital and was ready to accumulate even more wealth. Unfortunately for Mike, he allegedly used some creative accounting methods which artificially inflated the value of Autonomy prior to the company's sale. Hewlett-Packard wrote off $8.8 billion in the acquisition. They accused Mike of serious accounting improprieties, disclosure failures, and outright misrepresentations. In March 2019, Hewlett-Packard sued Mike, but he soon found himself with other more serious problems to worry about. The United States federal government charged Mike with 1 count of conspiracy and 14 counts of wire fraud. One of his employees, Stephen Chamberlain, was also charged. The government said that between 2009 and 2011, Mike and Stephen artificially inflated the company's revenue by backdating written agreements to record revenue in prior periods and recording revenue on contracts that were subject to contingencies. The men also made false and misleading statements to regulators and intimidated people who criticized the financial practices of Autonomy. Mike was facing up to 25 years in federal prison. He fought extradition for 4 years, but was unsuccessful. In May 2023, he was extradited to the United States for trial and placed under house arrest in San Francisco, California. In a stunning twist, on June 6, 2024, Mike and Stephen were acquitted of all charges. To celebrate this incredible and unexpected legal victory, Mike decided to take a voyage on a British-flagged 183-foot sailing yacht called Bastian. The $35 million vessel, which was built in 2008, was owned by a company controlled by Mike's wife. It had the second tallest mast in the world. The aluminum mast reached 246 feet to the sky. There were 12 passengers and 10 crew members aboard Bastian. The passengers included members of the legal team who represented Mike during his criminal trial. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On Monday, August 19, 2024, Bastian was anchored off the northern coast of Sicily, a half-mile from the fishing village of Porticello. At 3:50 a.m., a powerful storm, which may have featured a waterspout, struck the area. A waterspout is a narrow column of rotating air below a thunderstorm, which happens over water. In a matter of minutes, Bastian capsized. At 4:06 a.m., the vessel sank. A surveillance camera captured the moment the vessel disappeared. Bastian came to rest on its starboard side at a depth of 164 feet. The 51-year-old captain, James Cutfield, would later say he did not see the waterspout coming. 15 of the 22 people on board were rescued, including Mike Lynch's wife, Angela. 7 people did not survive. 59-year-old Mike Lynch, his 18-year-old daughter Hannah, a 59-year-old lawyer named Chris Morvillo, his 57-year-old wife Nada, a 70-year-old businessman named Jonathan Bloomer, his 71-year-old wife Judy, and the 58-year-old chef Ricaldo Thomas. The recovery mission was hazardous, and divers ran into problems because furniture was obstructing the cabin. Despite these challenges, all the bodies were recovered within 4 days. A few hours after Bastian sank, Mike's co-defendant, Stephen Chamberlain, died in England. 2 days earlier, on Saturday, August 17, 52-year-old Stephen was mortally wounded after being struck by a blue Vauxhall Corsa. He had been running on a road in Cambridgeshire. The car that hit him was operated by a 49-year-old woman who remained at the scene. At the time I'm making this video, both the Bayesian disaster and Stephen's death are under investigation. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. The acquittal of Mike Lynch and Stephen Chamberlain was unbelievable and unexpected. The federal government is a seemingly invincible machine of prosecution. Less than 1% of federal criminal cases result in acquittal. It is reasonable to believe that Mike imagined prison on his horizon. He suggested that his victory was like being given a second life. Chris Morvillo, who died aboard Bastian, described the atmosphere when the jury returned the not guilty verdict. He said it was an electric moment, and he'd never seen anything like that in a courtroom before. Grown people were sobbing and hugging. People were clapping. It was remarkable. They had a big party that lasted all night. Later, aboard Bastian, the party continued. Presumably, everyone was in a good mood and looking forward to the future. Mike was ready for a new adventure and to continue innovating in his field. Item number 2. Was Mike Lynch guilty of fraud despite his acquittal? In my opinion, he was probably guilty in reality. There is no question that misrepresentations occurred and the value of Mike's company Autonomy was artificially inflated. It is just a matter of who was involved. Did Mike know about it? Did he play a part in it? Mike lost a civil suit against Hewlett-Packard in 2022, but the damages have not yet been decided by the court. Hewlett-Packard is seeking $4 billion. Mike was facing financial devastation at the time of his death. It may have been a little too early for parties. Item number 3. Why did Bastian sink? Waterspouts are not usually considered that dangerous for seagoing vessels. The yacht should not have gone under the water that easily. It had endured much more severe weather at other times during its service. At this point in the investigation, there are 3 theories about what happened. Theory number 1 is that the keel of the yacht was retracted. The keel is a fin-like structure that runs under the middle of the boat from bow to stern. It provides a lower center of gravity, stability, and more control. Bastian had a retractable keel. Usually the keel would only be retracted to allow navigation in shallow water. With the keel retracted, a strong wind could have capsized the boat. The divers who conducted the rescue mission said the keel was partially raised, which appears to support this theory. Theory number 2 is that at least one major hatch on Bastian was left open. As the yacht tipped over, water started filling the interior, and there was no stopping the vessel from going under. If the crew made this blunder, then recklessness was involved in the sinking of the vessel. Theory number 3 is that the tall mast of Bastian was pushed over by the wind. Even with the sails stowed, the mast and rigging would have provided plenty of surface area for wind resistance. Maybe the 246-foot mast was simply too ambitious. It's also possible that a combination of factors was at work, like the keel was retracted, the mast was pushed over by the wind, and the cabin started filling with water because a hatch was left open. Many maritime disasters are caused by a series of mistakes, not just one error. Item number 4. Whatever caused the disaster, there will probably be myriad lawsuits alleging wrongdoing in this case. The survivors of the disaster could sue, as well as the families of the victims. Many of the survivors have not told their stories to the media yet, but what little news there is on this topic is grim and disturbing. For example, one passenger, Charlotte Golunski, was on the deck of Bastian when the yacht went over. She was thrown into the water along with her 1-year-old daughter. Charlotte said it was dark. I screamed for help, but all I could hear around me were the screams of others. Item number 5. Some people have wondered if Mike and Stephen were destined to die because they escaped justice. This is reminiscent of the Final Destination movie franchise. All the Final Destination horror movies essentially have the same plot. There is a group of people. One of them has a premonition about dying during a specific activity like flying on a plane or driving on the highway. The person persuades the other people to avoid this activity. As it turns out, the premonition was correct, like the plane crashed or there was a terrible automobile collision. The person with the premonition ended up saving the lives of all the people in the group. As the people express gratitude for remaining alive, death evens the score. Members of the group fall victim to a series of bizarre, fatal events. For example, being struck by a truck, struck by a bus, crushed by a neon sign, impaled by a fire escape ladder, decapitated by an elevator, killed by a flying barbecue grill, and crushed by aircraft landing gear. The fates of Mike and Stephen could have been taken right out of a Final Destination movie. Their circumstances fit with the typical plot pretty well. There was a 99% chance that the men were going to be convicted and sentenced to prison for many years, yet they managed to beat the charges. They were joyous. The celebration was unprecedented. They believed the worst was behind them. Mysteriously, Stephen was fatally struck by a small car in broad daylight, and Mike drowned on a massive yacht due to an unexpected storm. Based on life expectancy data, the men should have lived for many more years, yet they died just hours apart. The day that Mike and Stephen died was the 13th anniversary of Autonomy announcing its sale to Hewlett-Packard. What happened here? Was this destiny? Did the men pay for cheating Hewlett-Packard out of billions of dollars? Like some type of Grim Reaper financial edition? Maybe it involved the Grim Reaper's cousin, who always had a knack for numbers. There is no doubt that the circumstances of this case are bizarre, unlikely, and suspicious. However, this was probably just a coincidence. There is another element of this case which seems like it's right out of a movie, namely the celebration of Mike and his associates after the legal victory. These multimillionaires were together on a $35 million yacht. They may have been laughing and carrying on about a major company being ripped off for billions of dollars. Regardless of who was to blame, this seems callous. An opportunity to reflect on past mistakes was instead used to fight a case of the giggles. Out of nowhere, a mysterious storm strikes down the yacht and sends it 164 feet down to the ocean floor. No other boat in the area shared this fate. All the deaths occurred aboard Bayesian. Just like the Final Destination connection can be dismissed, so can the theory that arrogance and pretentiousness caused the Bayesian disaster. However, I can appreciate why some people look at this case and see the hand of fate. It is certainly a bizarre situation that appears to contain some type of life lesson. Perhaps the lesson is something like, don't have a party after being acquitted for allegedly defrauding people out of billions of dollars. Or it could be something mundane like, pay attention to boat safety procedures. Regardless of what the lesson is, the Bayesian disaster is a reminder of the fragility of life and the volatility of the human experience. Mike was able to ride out one storm only to be surprised by another. Bayesian, the yacht that symbolized Mike's triumph, now shares his fate on the ocean floor. As she sank, so did the illusion of power and control that had defined Mike's existence. No victory is immune from the whims of fate, and no celebration is beyond its reach. Those are my thoughts on the case of Dr. Michael Lynch and the Bayesian disaster. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They consistently generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.